All right, you are recording, Pam.
Thank you. It is the June 1st, 2020 school board meeting of Red Wing Public Schools. It's 6 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order. Before you is our agenda for the evening. I will I'll go back a step. We'll take a roll call roll call attendance. Mike Christensen.
Here.
Holly Tower.
Here.
Jim Bryant.
Here.
Janie Fair.
Present.
Heidi Jones.
Present.
Arlen Derricks.
Here.
And Cher is here. Wonderful. We're all here. We'll go ahead and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
which it stands,
one
nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Here are members tonight. Christensen to share the
It.
I think so. Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
All right, now I got to find it again. All right, the mission of the Red Wing Public Schools is to educate and inspire all students as they realize their full potential and become respectful, responsible, and productive citizens.
Thank you. So now you see the meeting agenda before you. Do we have any changes, additions, things that we'd like to talk about there?
Pam, I think we should probably discuss public comment procedures,
Yes.
either as a discussion item or as an action item this evening.
Yes. Where's the best? Do you want to put it under the business?
I suppose so, if we might make some changes.
Well, perhaps we should put that with our meeting location because we'll make decisions moving forward at that point. So do we want to add meeting location and public comment procedure?
That sounds good.
Okay, I will add it.
Would it be possible to talk about it before we do public comment?
We will, I will talk about what our current procedure has been, and then we can discuss it further at 4.4. And then we can vote on making any changes at that time. Is that okay?
I was hoping that we could talk about it before we actually do, and so kind of clarify it.
I will clarify it before we start public comment.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other changes that we'd like to make or additions? Okay. Seeing none, then if we have any, as we've been working on this virtual format, which we all know is not our preferred method, but this is what we are challenged with right now during our current pandemic. If we have any board comments, please put your name in the chat box. That will help us to cut back on any talking over one another and will help streamline our process. And if you aren't speaking, if you could mute yourself, that would be great. That will also cut back on that feedback that we're hearing. Thank you. As we always mention in our agenda packet, you will see that we have our educational plan. That's always a part of our packet so that we remember what our core values are, what our mission is, and where our main strategic direction is. And that's always there for your viewing. Recognitions and upcoming events. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share?
Pam, did we have a vote on approval of the agenda?
I'm sorry. Thank you. No, we did not.
Okay, I just want to be sure I didn't miss. I had a glitch there.
My mistake. Thank you. Okay, so we've talked about the agenda. We'll go back to that. We have the agenda with the addition of talking about the public comment procedure.
Mike will make the motion to approve the agenda. as
Mike will
all.
make that in a second.
Jim will second.
Any other discussion? Then we will take a roll call vote. Ms. Tower,
Aye.
Mr. Bryant,
Aye.
Ms. Fair, Ms. Fair? Was that a yes? We'll come back to Jeannie. Ms. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Derricks,
Aye.
Mr. Christensen,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Jeannie?
That's an aye. Sorry, computer.
Okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't hearing you clearly.
computer
you.
problems. Yep.
All right, so the agenda passes. Thank you, Heidi, for keeping me on track there. Now we'll move to recognitions and upcoming events. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share?
Yes, I have two things, Madam Chair. This is
Yes.
Heidi Jones speaking. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that we had a lovely article about the Kids Junction staff and all the supporting staff, an article in the newspaper talking about, what their daily life is for the kids and some of the challenges with the social emotional pieces for the kids and the staff in this kind of distance environment. So I just wanted to bring that forward. I could mention it later, but I think I'll do it now under the sort of celebration idea. So Cavo Family Center had its end of year celebration today. It was a parking lot drive-through setup for kids and families, so it was really cool. They had balloons all over the place. They were blowing bubbles. They had a puppy to pet. They took a family photo. It was all the kids and the families in the cars. So this was staff doing this for about 5 hours today. And it was just really great. I mean, people were excited to have the connection. It's a little weird for some of the kids, and it was great for the staff to kind of see the faces of the kiddos live and in person that they've been separated from for so long. So it was wonderful, wonderful job that staff does down there, including all the setup by the custodial staff and the cleanup. So 2 thumbs up to those folks. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Janie, you had something to share?
Yep. Just quickly, I know, this is the end of the school year, the last week, so I just want to say thank you to all of our teachers and paras and cooks and every staff possible. I'm sure my other board members would say the same, but this has been an unprecedented time, obviously, and I just think we've all showed a lot of grit, and I just appreciate everyone. So just kind of wanted to publicly make that statement that we're almost there, and it's just been a great year, and we've pushed through and done some great things. So thank you to everybody.
Thank
Great.
you. Yeah. Mr. Bryant?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll echo Janie's comments. It's been a very unusual year, one that will go down in the history books as we'll be talking about this for years, if not decades. With the last week, good luck to all the seniors as they branch out to another part of their life. I also want to echo a thanks to the downtown merchants. Those flags look absolutely beautiful down there with our seniors on them. And the merchants and downtown council, all those people down there stepped up to make this as best graduation week and graduation that we could do. And it just shows their commitment to the school. And I heard some other people comment about the flags. And so I just wanted to make sure that we gave them public recognition as well.
Well said, Jim. The flags are amazing. That they're great to see. Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, I'd like to publicly thank the high school staff for their work on the senior or for the award ceremony last week that was shared last week. It's about an hour long and well worth viewing. You can take a look on the school district's website for a copy. Very well done by graduates of Red Wing High School who are doing a lot of this at a very low cost. And it was just a nice way to commemorate, our student athletes and students in general. And then also, everyone should know that the next video is coming out Friday at 7 o'clock. It's the graduation video that will be similarly high quality. And then finally, and just as important, just a quick statement. Obviously we are all greatly saddened about the death of George Floyd and the resulting aftermath that is still being felt throughout the country. As a school and society, we must address racial inequities and injustices. As a school, we need to better serve all students in our community. So I know that's heartfelt by everyone on the board, but we want to make that clear to community members as well.
Thank you, Karsten.
Very much. Anybody else? I would also reiterate Mr. Anderson's very eloquent words. It's been a tough week emotionally for all of us. And one thing that's for certain is, it's important to always look for the helpers, and you will always find them. They're in every crowd. And I've been very encouraged and uplifted by those that are coming together to clean and provide food and donations for those people that need them. And in our community as well, in our school district, there are always those helpers. And when we can find them or be them, that we can change the world and move mountains. I firmly believe that. So thank you, Mr. Anderson, for sharing that. I would like to also say a hearty congratulations to all of our seniors. Wow, what a year. And you will hear more from me later in the week at graduation. But I wanted to also say a special congratulations to our senior school board member, David Shear. He has been gracious to join us for this last school year on the school board. And so we wish you well, and we know that you will do great things and move mountains as well. And your Red Wing hometown will miss you, and we wish you the best of luck. Any other recognitions or upcoming events? All right, seeing none, then we will move to public comment. I've heard a lot today, especially about the confusion maybe, or the disappointment in how we've been running our protocol for public comment. Usually when we're able to meet together during public comment, people are able to sign up and come forward. Holly, do you have something that you want to share right now before I move on?
Sorry, I can wait until you're done saying what you were going to say.
Okay.
Unless you want my piece now.
Why don't you let me just kind of give it an introduction, and then I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you.
Yep. So anyway, when we're together, we're able to sign a sheet and come forward and share your 3 minutes or less with us in terms of whatever public comment you have. It has always been our practice to have public comment limited to 3 minutes. That has been our practice for as long as I've been on this board and longer. We expect that comments be limited to 3 minutes, and that a representative be selected to speak on behalf of a group when it's appropriate. We listen to public comment, but usually we do not discuss the topic at the meeting. The superintendent and or board chair may provide a response outlining steps the school district has taken or will take to address the concerns. And then we expect that comments remain respectful and appropriate and not identify any current or former students, their families, or staff members by name. Now that we've had to switch to a virtual meeting, it makes having people come physically before the board much more difficult. And so we've taken it to a different level based on some recommendations by MSBA that people always have the opportunity to have their comments heard. We never ever want to squash that or hinder that. And so we chose to have statements mailed to me at least 2 hours prior to the start of the meeting, and that the statement must include the writer's name and address. In turn, the statement will be read with appropriate edits as per expectations outlined in what I had just read. And I had mentioned earlier, after we've been in our virtual world, I had talked about what those appropriate edits would be. And the appropriate edits would only be if somebody was calling somebody out by name and identifying current or former students, their families, or staff members. And so that's not allowed when we're meeting face-to-face, and so that would not be allowed when we're meeting virtually as well during public comment. It's come to my attention this morning that people would instead rather have an opportunity to speak themselves instead of having their statement read during this time. And so that's what we will be discussing at item 4.4 is how we can change that procedure. And I'm happy to do so and have that discussion at that point. Holly, do you have anything else that you'd like to add to that?
Yes, so I had the opportunity to connect with MSBA this afternoon and ask them, because I misunderstood it when it said somebody would read it. I didn't anticipate it would be anybody specific, so I assumed it would just be the person that wrote the letter. So if you wrote the letter, then I would think you would be the one to read the letter. So that's where I'm at with all of this. So I'm not so sure which is clear that we identified a speaker for the letters, and that's what I was trying to communicate earlier.
Sure.
And especially in light of what's just happened in the last week, I think it's really important we hear people's voices and their stories authentically. So that's all I wanted to add. Thanks, Pam.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Holly, and we'll discuss that more when we talk about how our procedures have been working thus far and making changes moving forward. I too like to hear people's voices, and I don't want to put inflection or tone where it's not meant to be, and that's a difficult place for me. I think it was a matter of interpretation on how a statement would be read. When people are emailing me a statement, I guess it was assumed that I'd read the statement, because why would I get the email and then forward it to someone else? So that was, we can talk about how to make that better, because I think you're absolutely right. With that being said, tonight we're going to follow the protocol that we've set in place. And then when we get to 4.4, we can discuss a different protocol moving forward and act on that as a board and make it very crystal clear what our protocol is going to be. And from that moment on, in future meetings that happen virtually, that's how we'll do it. But for tonight, we have to proceed with the current protocol as written. So with that being said, I do have 9 public comments to read this evening and share with you. The first one comes from, and I'm reading them in order of when I received them. Chloe Struess at 2451 Hay Creek Trail in Red Wing is a student with us here in Red Wing. And she is writing on behalf of her participation on the TRAP team. She says, I am emailing regarding the upcoming school board meeting and ability for the Red Wing High School TRAP team to shoot this season. Josh Tegeson will be attending the meeting and talking about the new COVID-19 rules and regulations for the TRAP season. I wanted to email and talk a little myself. The Minnesota Clay Target League is being very helpful during this time. Usually our season starts in April and ends around this time, but they have pushed it back, so it will end on June 24th. During a regular season, scores need to be entered every week, but this year we are allowed to enter them all at once if needed. Some of the regulations that we will be following consist of no spectators, no carpooling will be allowed, no people will be allowed in the clubhouse, we will not be sharing equipment, and students will sit in their car until it is time to shoot. There are many more rules, but I wanted to share some of the more important ones with you. One bigger thing to mention is that no other teams come and shoot with us. It is only our team at the trap range. We enter our scores online in order to compete with other teams. Trap shooting is already a social distancing sport because it is outside and the stations where the students stand are 9 feet apart. This is a sport that many students and myself look forward to all year. I hope we are able to shoot this season. Thank you for taking the time to read this, Chloe Struess.
Well,
I also have, oh, go ahead.
Pam, if I could just respond to that real quick. That is an item for discussion later in the meeting, so we'll certainly discuss that at that time.
The next public comment was received from Shelley Pullman. She is a resident in Red Wing, and she wanted to share a little bit about aversion therapy. Our policy says in public comment, when you look at the policy in our handbook and listed on our website, our policy says we should we ask that people should provide their address when coming forward with public comment. On our sheet in our agenda packet, it says people must include name and address. So because there's a little bit of an interpretation in should versus must, I'm going to allow that she does not share her address with us, but she did want us to know that she lives here in Red Wing. She says, good evening, my name is Shelley Pullman, a resident of Red Wing and a supporter of the Red Wing School District. On May 28th, 2020, a Red Wing School District employee spoke at the Human Rights Commission meeting regarding a ban on conversion therapy in the city of Red Wing. The Human Rights Commission had several Red Wing School District employees, and they are all recommending a citywide conversion therapy ban on June 8th at the Red Wing City Council. There is not one healthcare professional practicing conversion therapy in the city of Red Wing. So why are school district employees seeking a solution to a problem that doesn't exist in the city of Red Wing? Why are school district employees promoting a citywide conversion therapy ban to give power to local law enforcement officials to punish healthcare professionals, counselors, religious leaders, and parents seeking information and treatment options for their children? Do parents not have a right to seek counsel from their physician, pastor, and their mental health care provider regarding their children's health? I am concerned about our freedoms, particularly the freedom of our parents and children having access to licensed professionals that will lead them to an educated choice. What is the real agenda of these school district employees? As a conservative Christian, I am now concerned about the district's health curriculum and who is teaching it. I'm requesting the school board review the health curriculum at all grade levels to ensure age appropriateness and that it reflects the family values of the district. Have these employees brought their concerns about conversion therapy to the board? Thank you for the opportunity to express my concerns regarding government overreach. Included are references for the official record and for your consideration. And then she references the heritage.org/gender commentary on conversion therapy bans and how they hurt kids. Focus on the family has been referenced. Number 3, Representative Lucero spoke about the new comprehensive sex education for elementary age children. The mandates specifically allow persons without a teaching license to instruct our children in the classroom, including any community organizations that has necessary content, expertise, and the sex education content requires the teaching of relationships involving diverse sexual orientation and gender identities. On Planned Parenthood's own website, they boast being the largest provider of comprehensive sex education in Minnesota, and as a community organization, praise the comprehensive sex education Democrats are mandating. She also goes on to cite the American College of Pediatrics, sex education in the home and school, the War on Children, a comprehensive sexuality education agenda, the CDC, USA Today story, and a YouTube link.
And I'll just briefly respond. First of all, any employees who were serving on the committee or presenting to the committee were speaking independently from the school district. That issue has not been discussed at any level, as far as I know. Certainly hasn't come to my attention or the school board's attention. And so, obviously, our employees, like everyone else, has a right to express their views and opinions, if they're employed by the school district or not. As far as the review of the health curriculum, we do regularly review the health curriculum, as we do with all of our department curriculum. And so, obviously, we'll continue to do that on an established basis.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Eric Chandler is the next public comment. He lives at 1118 Oak Street, and he wants to talk about the use of buildings and facilities. He says, I'm writing in regards to student athletic activities. I was encouraged to see Governor Walz and the youth sports groups throughout the state working together to plan a return to youth sports and organized activities recently. I was excited to see the City Council approve reopening the athletic fields in coordination with Community Rec and the local youth baseball and softball associations. I would be encouraged to see the school board follow suit and begin allowing the use of school gymnasiums and fields for our other sports, such as basketball, soccer, football, etc., for formal organized activities as well for our school teams. As we all know, it's been a difficult few months for educators, students, coaches, and athletes with distance learning, limited social interaction, virtual workouts, and lost competitive seasons. I can confidently say my two high schoolers, Cooper, who will graduate in 2022, and Sammy in 2023, are anxious to get back on the field and court with their teammates and participate in the school sports they love to play. Thank you for your consideration on this matter.
And once again, that'll be discussed later in the meeting.
Thank you. Liz McGill and Brooke McGill are talking about inclusivity. They live at 979 Burton Street. And collectively, Liz has 3 minutes here and Brooke has 3 minutes. So this will be a 6 minute or less time. She writes, Dear Superintendent Anderson and Red Wing Public School Board members, I am speaking to you this evening regarding a subject that I feel is of utmost importance in regard to Red Wing Public Schools. I'm requesting you to be mindful of my ask and give it intentional thought before you act. Red Wing Public Schools has a variety of vacancies to fill in the upcoming months. I realize there is pressure to get these filled in order to be prepared for next fall. I realize none of us know for sure what next fall will look like for our students, which makes filling these positions even more of a priority. I am asking, though, that you pause. Yes, pause in your hire. I am asking that you pause and be intentional in hiring in a manner that addresses not the lack, but the absence of diversity in the Red Wing Public School system. My ask includes looking at the values the Red Wing Public School Board considers in finding the best candidate and making sure these values are inclusive to minority candidates. This past week has been tough. It's been ugly, raw, gut-wrenching, and almost every other adjective one can think of when trying to describe a horrific situation. Social media and intimate conversations have been filled with questions such as, what can we do about this? Why is this happening? How is this helping? How is this helping? How can I help? The list goes on. I keep coming back to one single word, hope. Many of our young people have no hope. They have no out. They have no reason to believe it will get better. They have no hope because they have no role models. I am not only talking about the Metro, I am specifically talking about Red Wing. Our children of color have very few, 3 that I know of, role models in our entire public school system. 3 individuals who look like them. That is less than half of you sitting representing our school system at this moment. Red Wing Schools needs professionals that our children of color can look up and believe in the buy-in that they too can do this. They can achieve what those role models have achieved, a great career, education, homes, productive lives, etc. Think of the role models in your own lives. Who do they look like? You? Imagine if none of your role models looked like you. Would they still be your role models? When Target first opened in Red Wing, I was leaving with my then 3-year-old daughter, who is African American, Hispanic, and Native American. When we were in the parking lot, she said to me, "Mommy, do you know what? No one in that store looked like me." Having people around you that looks like you does make a difference in every aspect of your life. I realized finding qualified candidates that have diverse backgrounds is hard, but I am willing to help a committee research the places to market for these positions. I would also ask that how, as a community, can we begin to shift for making Red Wing a community that minorities choose to work and live? Superintendent Anderson, Brooke has spoken to you previously with ideas of where to look. We'll help again. Furthermore, I would ask that any new curriculum or the present curriculum being used in Red Wing Public Schools has data to support that gains will be made in inclusivity, especially in regards to our students on the other side of the achievement gap. Data is not the only aspect to consider, but is something measurable. Closing the achievement gap predominantly helps our students of color, as they are the ones typically scoring lower in our school system. The ask is that yes, the curriculum presented is intentional in closing the achievement gap. And yes, the curriculum being presented to our students is inclusive in regards to the presentation of the curriculum with the intent to close the gap. A yes is a win-win for not only our students, but also our community. I thank you for your time and especially for your pause. Liz McGill, Brooke McGill, in regards to relinquishing public comments minutes to Liz McGill, submitted for public comment to be read by Pam Rowe, representing the school board, as community members not allowed to read their own public comments.
So just a real quick response. This issue warrants more study and consideration. There's no doubt that we do need a greater diverse workforce within the school district. The question is, how can we make that happen? And we've done some things in the past, but clearly they're not enough. I know that Connie Bryant and Amy French have expanded our outreach to more sources for advertising positions. I know we've conducted some job fairs, at least last year, and we were planning to conduct job fairs this year until COVID happened. And our intent was to reach into Wisconsin, Iowa, and some other places to try to reach out more. As far as the curriculum, that is an important thing that we need to work with our new director of teaching and learning when that person is hired by the school board, because it needs to be a high priority for us. So that's just a quick reply, but as I said, we do need to do more study and a more thorough discussion at the board level.
Our fifth public comment tonight is from Jennifer Tift. She's a parent and she wants to speak on behalf of an opportunity for change. She lives at 32661 Grosse Point Road in Red Wing. And she writes, "Dear members of the Red Wing School Board, I am writing today as a friend and ally of people of color in the Red Wing community. During these times of unrest, when so many of us are looking for something to do to help, you, as leaders in our school district, have the opportunity to begin making important changes that can have a lasting impact on the students and families of Red Wing. First of all, I ask you to recognize and truly understand the racial inequities within the system and work to find ways to change them. Why do we have such a profound achievement gap? Why do our students of color feel unsafe or unheard? Talk with families of color in our community and listen to the experiences, needs, and concerns expressed. Research other communities like ours who have been successful in closing the achievement gap and improving race relations. What have they done to make change? Who has been in charge of that change? What staff development opportunities should be required? What curriculum do we use that increases sensitivity? I ask you to be intentional in focusing on what our district can do in each building to create change. During the next several months, as you continue the hiring of new staff and administrators, I ask that you recruit qualified candidates that represent the students of color in our community. Our children need to have teachers, principals, and other staff members that look like them and have similar cultural experiences. Our children of color deserve to see themselves represented in professional leadership roles within our district. Once again, please recognize the opportunity you have been given as white people in power in our community to make a real and lasting difference in the lives of our families of color. Thank you, Jennifer Tift.
Yeah, and somewhat related, obviously, to the previous public comments. Clearly, we need an equity plan, to address some of the racial inequities and injustices within our own school system and community. And Jennifer, highlighted some of the features of that plan. And I think it's something that we should consider focusing on over the next few weeks and months.
I have another email here from Julie Martin, 807 3rd Street, Red Wing. Also speaking about the lack of diversity within our teaching and in administration. She says, I am writing to you about my concern about the lack of diversity within our teaching and administrative staff. As a parent of 2 children of color in the district, I feel like my children need to see people that look like them in leadership roles. I asked my daughters, who have been in this district for 10 years now, if they have ever had an African American, Asian, or Hispanic teacher, and the answer was no. I am asking you to make a commitment and be intentional in future hiring about recruiting candidates for teaching and administrative positions that allow our minority students to be mentored and led by professionals that they will grow up to be. White students need to see minorities in charge as well. All children need the experience of learning acceptance for people unlike ourselves. I understand that we are a small Midwestern town and that there are barriers to attracting minorities to our town. Can you tell me what the district has done to advertise these positions to reach out to places where we could attract minorities recently? It is not enough to post positions in our area districts. If we need to, we should hire a consultant who will look at helping us attract non-whites to our town. I know this has been done in the past. In addition to teaching and administrative staff, we could also have more partnerships, such as African drumming that was offered to a select group of Burnside. Students who auditioned and made it had the unique experience of learning from Soa Mensah, the drummer from Ghana. Could we offer signing bonuses? Sorry, I have to turn pages. Could we offer signing bonuses that are above the salary matrix for minorities who agree to stay in our district for a certain number of years? The district is hiring for curriculum/teacher, coach, and principal positions that come with salaries more than double what a starting salary is for a teacher. Surely those salaries would attract minorities. Can we cast a wide net in looking for people for those positions? We are a district that is not without some racial tension in our past. In the past few days, a lot of us have been thinking about what we can do as a country to address some of our race problems. I think that hiring minorities would be a I think that hiring minorities would be a substantive demonstration to our community, parents, and students that we value all races and ethnicities. Thank you for your consideration, Julie Martin, parent of Luana and Mariana Martin.
Again, a quick response because, some of this has already been addressed with earlier public comments. Clearly, our ideal situation would be to hire more people of color. However, I don't think it would be appropriate to hire or to pay people more just because of they happen to be from a certain ethnic group. However, we also need to come up with some creative solutions to get more people to apply in Red Wing. There's no doubt that will be the best chance of getting to hire more people is to get more people to apply. There's no doubt about it.
The 7th public comment comes from Mr. Bruno Ron, 839 Snowbird Drive in Red Wing, also in support of opening up our buildings. I am writing in regards to student athletic activities. I was encouraged to see Governor Walz and the youth sports groups throughout the state working together to plan a return to youth sports and organized activities in the past couple of weeks. I was particularly excited to see the City Council approve reopening the athletic fields in coordination with Community Rec and the local baseball and softball associations. I would just like to encourage the school board to follow suit and begin allowing the use of school gymnasiums and fields for our other sports such as basketball, soccer, football, etc. for formal organized activities, as well as voluntary captains activities for the school teams. As we all know, it's been a difficult few months for educators, students, coaches, and athletes with distance learning, limited social interaction, virtual workouts, and lost competitive seasons. As a dad of 2 3-sport student athletes, I can confidently say that my girls, Sydney will graduate in 2021 and Sophia 2023, are chomping at the bit to get back with their teammates and participating in the sports that they love and so dearly miss. Thank you in advance for your consideration on this matter. Sincerely, Bruno Ron.
Yeah, and again, that was similar to some earlier comments, and will be discussed later in the meeting.
The 8th public comment comes from Martha Harris regarding the need for more people of color to be hired in positions of leadership in Independent School District 256. She writes, I have difficulty coming to the table with my voice, the voice of a privileged white woman, to try and form words that will make a difference for people of color. I cannot begin to say that I understand how people of color are feeling, but I am trying to listen and hear. It is my understanding from listening to friends, the students that I worked with in the NC Department of Corrections, the diversity and inclusion trainings through YUSA, and some of my partners through work at UW La Crosse Multicultural Services, that I need to speak up more specifically. Speak up in the circles of others that look like me and have control and decision-making for people of color. In order to develop a foundation of understanding and to give more hope to people of color in our public schools, I believe those students need more teachers and administrators that look like them. Putting forth an intentional effort to recruit and advertise for positions open in District 256 that will bring a more diverse representation to our school district will be a building block towards a healthier community and a community that offers opportunity and inclusion for all of our community. I would like to close by saying thank you for the work that you are all doing, and I sincerely appreciate the education and opportunities my children received as students of Independent School District 256. My hope is that all children will believe their school is an extended family that will support their goals toward a vibrant and sustainable future, and all parents can feel that their children are embraced and lifted up by their school community. Working to create more diversity in our leadership in Independent School District 256 will help to move us in that direction.
Thank you, Martha, for those comments. And as I said earlier, an equity plan would address some of the suggestions that she made.
And finally, I have public comment from P. Reyes Janete, Red Wing High School 2018 graduate. I wanted to share my experience when my family first moved to the US. We lived with a college student that rented a room in the same house we rented. At this point in time, I was 8 years old and I despised reading with burning passion. I thought it was pointless and didn't have an attention span that could concentrate to the end of a sentence anyways. That was until Emmanuel, the college student, one time walked in on me while I was playing with my Legos and decided to play along. By this point, my family had grown fond of him and my parents have even referred to him as their oldest kid in the past. After all, we were in a different land with a different culture and he just so happened to be the only other Venezuelan we knew. While we played, he told me how his favorite thing to do is read books and how that's his pastime. I've read a plenitude of books since that day, not because teachers pushed me to, and not because my parents demanded it, but because someone I looked up to, someone that shared my background and my culture and could therefore relate to me, told me about it. A child is extremely impressionable. A superhero does something cool in a movie, and you'll see little boys and girls copying them for months. If a kid is part of a minority and they see someone they can feel connected to when the rest of the world is oh so slightly foreign to them, they'll look up to that person. Imagine all the good that would come if that person was a teacher.
Well, thank you, Paolo, for your comment. I know he's a third-year student at St. Cloud State, and I'm sure he's doing very well. He brings up a great point that, obviously teachers and other staff members can play a valuable role in the lives of kids, but also mentors and friends and so many others in the community. We're all in this together, and, we can all look for solutions to the issues that have been discussed. So thank you, Paolo.
And again, we always welcome public comment, and I appreciate all these letters, and I wish that we could see you in person today. And I look forward to a lively conversation as we look forward to changing our procedures moving forward. That ends our public comment time. I have nothing else to report. So our next item on the agenda, number 2.4, is school board reports. Does anybody from the Finance Committee have anything they would like to share?
Yes, the Finance Committee met last week. It was a rather dismal meeting where we went through the potential for getting 0% increases in our funding in the coming few years, as well as with the uncertainty of whether school will be starting off or not, or where the COVID-19 situation will be at the beginning of the school year. The potential for parents to keep their youngest kids out of school, our kindergartners, is seen as a potential, not a threat, but as something that will withhold a lot of funding for us. Our kindergarten class, I think, was 190 students or something, and we were, we don't think that they all won't be coming, but it's very possible that people might hold their kids back for at least another year because they can, and so we'll have a year with significantly fewer students in the kindergarten, and with the online capabilities that are just growing and growing, it could also create more higher level students going out on their own, looking for their education without having to be in a close quarters situation in the schools, as well as how are the schools going to handle it if we have to limit anyway. So it's not a good financial situation for us. We're anticipating that, and so we're expecting on doing a revised, or looking at the budget for the next year as potentially having 130 fewer students. That may be more than that may be exaggerated, or it may be under-calculated. It's just so hard to tell with what's going on right now. But we thought it was prudent to at least expect that we're going to lose a significant amount of students for a year, and we have to deal with that. I think Jackie said we could lose 90 students and still maintain some semblance of what we've got going on now, staff-wise, and with everything that we're doing. But if we lose half again as many as that, it's significant money, and we have to be aware of that situation. So I'm letting you know. Jim, I did write up a little thing about trying to ask for the money back from the for the community ed providing daycare for our essential workers, and I haven't finished it. I just wrote it up. I'll probably show it to you later, but I don't have any of the detailed numbers, which would be important to show. But then we got the email from, I believe Heidi sent it out, from Denise, who says it looks like nobody's really going to be acting on that at the state level. At least that's what I got from that email. Is that right, Heidi? So,
Yeah, that's correct. There's no direct line apparently from the state that says we're willing to backfill what community ed departments have lost across the state. There just isn't an appetite for that because the state's finances are in free fall also. So your best hope is to turn to federal resources because here in this state we have a balanced budget. And at the federal level, they do deficit spending. So whether you agree with that or not, I think the state, and they're telling us local school districts should look to the federal government for any type of financial help at this time.
or our rainy day funds, as they called it.
Right, and that's kind of a tricky assumption to make, that school districts are sitting on a pile of money in the back room.
Right.
Some have very healthy reserves. This district,
No.
through pure serendipity, is in the middle of an accumulating referendum curve. So at this time, we might weather it, but I still think it's a conversation that there may be no resolution to, but I think we still need to keep looking for solutions.
And so we will. All you can do is lobby for it. So.
Right.
And that's, I don't think there was anything else of significance. Jim, do you remember anything? You're mute there.
I think you covered it pretty well. We were discussing if 90 or 130 or more is a number to plug in, and we'll see down the road here as we go forward kind of what the state's going to do, because we don't know what September is going to be for education in Minnesota.
Right. So that's where the dart landed at 130.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the sunny forecast from the treasurer of the finance committee. Next.
Anything new on operations that you'd like to report on? Arlen, do you have anything to share about operations?
Sorry, I was talking to myself again. Now I got the mic on. Operations committee met here just before this meeting here, and some of the items we had is a reviewed a lease with Three Rivers Community Action for Head Start 2021, new lease on that coming up. We discussed the use of school facilities this summer. We're in agreement on opening up our ball fields and outside facilities to be used through the community recreation joint powers with the city of Red Wing. We will be discussing, I think, later in our meeting, though, whether we want to do indoor use of and other things. So there's no recommendation on the indoor use of our facilities from the committee. We reviewed the long-term facilities maintenance plan, which will have to be approved by our board here in probably early July, early or mid-July. Maybe a little later, as Kevin Johnson is working on putting that together as we do every year. And it's a 10-year plan, and they can be altered, but the numbers are pretty much in place for the upcoming year. And so that will be coming before us here in the next month or two. And that was on the expenditures there. We also were briefed on concession stands and food service. Brent is overseeing that in order to comply with Department of Health a few years back. We asked food service to take this on, and there was a report given on the costs and revenues and expenditures, and I believe it was around $21,000 of concession plan money went out to the groups that used it. Our school district buys the material, trains the workers in cleanliness and complying with health regulations and such. And we are still running at a deficit, I believe, of, I'm not sure what the number was, it was somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 deficit this last year. We do have some inventory carrying over, but this is a trend that we are in here to get this so we are compliant with the Department of Health, and I think other districts will be following it. It's working well overall. We also asked to get an update on the Jefferson School, sale of Jefferson School. There was 120 days extension approved at, we believe it was for February 3rd. We do not have a current update at this time. Carson is planning to meet with Mr. Patterson next week. And the committee asked that we put this on the sale of Jefferson on the June 15th agenda. Also, as far as the committee, we tentatively are not going to be meeting in July. We normally would be the first week in month, first weekend, first Monday of the month. And of course, quite often we don't meet as a school board then. So we are not planning a meeting in July. However, we will call a meeting if anything comes up that's necessary for the committee to act on. But at this time, we're not planning to meet in July. Hopefully, Jim and Holly, they can pipe in and update anything I missed or said wrong here, but I think that was a good summary here.
It was, you did good.
Yep, pretty good. I think the losses were around 4,000, I think, and then I think Carson's meeting this week with Jim, or tentatively looking at. So you're right. We want to. I think the whole board wants to hear what going to happen with the Jefferson School in 2 weeks from now. So good job.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Arlen. Anything else from operations?
Not from operations, but you may go ahead with personnel, Madam Chair.
Yes, please. You are next on my list.
Thanks. And I have a few, but first on personnel, we met today and just wanted to let you know all about, we discussed a long-term high school substitute pay issue that had come up, just kind of with some variance issues. And then we did discuss possibly going with a new payment retirement post-employment benefit system. And we're going to go into that. I had several of us had some questions. And I actually asked the LMC just to kind of get some buy-in on that. There's some cost to it too. And then we are gonna, we got our first reply back on principal negotiations from the principal group. So we're starting that again. And so I'm not sure the timeline on that because we still have a couple of groups that are still open that need to get shored up. So, and then our final thing today that we discussed was the fall coach. We had a really long discussion about what that may look like, and we actually kind of discussed looking at the idea of having head coaches kind of always keeping their job the whole year so that they know that that's that expectation. But we did definitely emphasize that we need to start, you know, approving those hires before the coaches have contact with the kids. So we discussed the pay and different things and how the fall might look with that. But of course, with all the unknowns, we decided that we did decide on the unknown, but that was, you know, going to happen. So more on that, of course. But I did want to negotiations a little bit. We do have a tentative agreement with the cooks, and we're hoping that they're going to vote on that by the end of this week. So that was really good news. And I wanted to thank that whole group for having really good conversations. And then I had a big LMC meeting last week too that I really wanted to update the full board on, because I think it's also going to weigh into those financial decisions we're going to have to make. the good news is that we've been having an increase in participation in health and well-being assessments, but our claims did go up pretty dramatically last year. But after many years of it being pretty low and moderate, it normally happens. But, just with the current issues of COVID and the healthcare crisis that a lot of hospitals and insurance systems are in, we're a little bit nervous about how that's going to affect our bids as we go out, and we are up for bid this summer, so we'll be doing the bid process and RFP and such. So look for that coming up this summer, kind of a long process, but it'll be good. And I know we had just a great discussion about self-insurance again. If you remember from 2 years ago, I believe it was, Carson, you can correct me, but we had talked about the long-term benefits of self-insurance and how it could save us a lot of money over the long run, but there is quite a bit of risk. And at this time, we decided that probably as a district this summer, we would not go ahead with looking for proposals on self-insurance, just with, again, kind of the current financial unknowns going on in the district right now. And it seemed to be definitely an agreement across that whole LMC committee. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that too. And then the last thing was just a reminder, Carson, on that district advisory committee. I just would urge us to really get an email out in this coming week, so that those members on that committee can kind of know where we're at. And that's all I have.
And perhaps, Janie, you and I could meet with Beth Borgen to kind of discuss where the committee is at and the membership, et cetera.
That's just fine. Yep.
Thank you. And finally, Legislative and Policy Committee, any updates there? Heidi, do you have any updates on the Legislative and Policy Committee?
Yep, I did the same darn thing, talk to myself. No, I don't. But I do have a couple of pieces from MSBA. The legislative summary was released today. It's a 20-page piece, and it's fairly easy to read. So if you want to scan through that and pick up kind of what the gist of the session was, I think there's still some work to be done, but you can kind of discover what got done, what didn't get done, and what potentially will be on the docket for the next legislative session. And then tomorrow, MSBA is hosting a Southern Minnesota call with area superintendents and school board members. It's at 9 a.m. If you can't make the 9 a.m. call, there's also a general purpose 6 p.m. call that will include anybody who could not listen in on the call at 9 o'clock. And it really is geared toward what has your district's experience been with the COVID response, positive and negative, and what are your concerns at this time. So if you're interested, that's available to you. And then community education, we've had to cancel our meetings, in-person meetings, and for a variety of reasons, and certainly COVID was one of them. So we're hoping to plan a virtual meeting next week. So we'll obviously have a lot of updates because community ed has been a central player in how we deliver daycare services and distance learning for those kids, and part of the support for food service. And then obviously under discussion tonight, field use and facilities. So that's all I have to report at this time. Thanks.
Thank you, Heidi. Does anybody else have anything from any other committee that they would like to share? Okay, seeing none, I will move us along to the next item on our agenda, which is administrative reports. Mr. Anderson.
I just have a few items to mention. First, as always, there's a summary of the implementation of the education plan that's attached. The only changes I made in this plan this time is that I highlighted some of the goals that Kim Corey and Emily Seefelt presented during the workshop as far as how they see social emotional learning transpiring over the next year. So I included those goals in the implementation plan. Summer school has, and I accidentally said targeted services. I meant to say credit recovery programs, and extended school year services will be provided online this year. Heidi Jones asked a question about numbers for extended school year services. We expect about 100 Red Wing kids to participate. That's less than what we've had in the past. And just because there are some parents who don't want to have online learning over the summer. Administrative positions, it's been a busy couple of weeks interviewing candidates for 4 important positions. One is a Burnside Elementary School principal, and I'm pleased to announce that the recommendation is to hire Jen Grove as our principal for next year. Of course, that's pending school board approval that will hopefully take place on June 15th. Had interviews for the Director of Teaching and Learning position. I'm doing some checking. And so over the next few days, hopefully there'll be a decision there. We had some interviews for Information Technology Systems Administrator, and we'll be announcing that selection probably Wednesday. And then finally, the selection of Alan Gaylor as our Director of Buildings and Grounds will be recommended to the school board again on June 15th for approval. So we made good progress in terms of hiring these key administrative positions, and I'm very pleased with how that's transpiring. In terms of planning for the fall of 2020, we there's been a small group meeting regularly to discuss plans for this fall. We have multiple options that we're going to frame out, including distance learning, kind of a social distancing model, as well as some hybrid possibilities. And, I'm not sure when the state will be giving us some guidelines or some options. I would hope that in July, we'll be able to finalize some of that work. And that's one reason we have the workshop session scheduled in July to solely focus on distance learning and what might happen this fall. That's all I have, unless there's some questions.
Mr. Bryant has a comment or question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Knowing the 2 people that you've named, I think those are very nice choices. Somebody in the community, somebody in our organization that's an assistant principal position taking on a principal role, and I think that's a nice fit for that. Hopefully that'll bring things in Burnside a little bit calmer or help out there, so to speak. And Mr. Gaylor, I know he's a hardworking guy, does a lot, knows a lot, and I think that's an excellent choice as well for us as we go forward. And I look forward to having those names brought before us at our next school board meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, they're both outstanding people and staff members, so we're thrilled that they're taking on these extra responsibilities.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Anybody else have any questions or comments on the administrative report? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Karsten, for the administrative positions, could you tell me who was on the interview committee for all 4 positions? So just like start with the Burnside and then go to the next one and the next one?
Oh, I may not get, every single person who was on, the team, but Burnside had some teacher reps. Actually, I might have the Burnside list here.
Great.
Let me check here. Yeah, I don't have the list offhand, but I know it included people like Kim Corey, Jane Wasink, a couple of teacher representatives, and a couple of parents. So we had a really good group of stakeholders on that committee. For the Director of Teaching and Learning, we had teachers, a principal representative.
Can you tell me who?
Jen Grove was on that committee. The two teachers were Kim Thompson and Brent Wyatt. And then we had a couple more, and the names escape me, as I'm trying to think of who they are. For the IT candidates, Amy French and I were part of that interview team. Oh, Amy French was on the interview team for the Director of Teaching and Learning as well. There's one more person. And then for Mr. Gaylor, I believe it was Amy and myself, but I can't remember for sure. I've had so many interviews with so many different teams, but to the best of my recollection, those are the groups.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments about the administrative report from anybody? Okay. Seeing none, then I have the consent agenda before me, and before you should have that as well. Any changes to the consent agenda? Does anybody need to pull any items off of there?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, Pam.
Okay, motion made by Janie. Anyone second?
Mike
Second
will
by Heidi
second.
Jones.
All right, second by Heidi. Motion made by Janie, seconded by Heidi. Any other further conversation or discussion? All right, so I'll take a roll call vote then to vote on the motion to approve the consent agenda. We'll start with Mr. Bryant,
Aye.
Ms. Fair,
Aye.
Ms. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Derricks,
Aye.
Mr. Christensen,
Aye.
Ms. Tower. And,
Aye.
yep, and chair votes aye. Thank you. So the consent agenda passes. Thank you. Next, we have donations and grants. Mr. Anderson, do you want to share the latest on that?
Yeah, we have the one donor, the Mighty Cause Charitable Foundation, for the high school robotics team. I noticed that it's $13.97. I don't know if Jackie's on the line, but if she could verify that amount for us, if she is.
That is the correct amount, $13.97. And the more common name to this foundation is the Give to the Max Day.
Thank you, Jackie.
And it looks like it was designated for the high school robotics.
Correct.
Okay. Motion, I am looking for a motion to approve the attached resolution accepting donations and grants.
Madam Chair, I make a motion. Brian?
Motion made by Jim, thank you. Second,
Holly?
Holly. Motion made by Jim, seconded by Holly. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we will go ahead with a roll call vote. Ms. Fair,
Aye.
Ms. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Derricks,
Aye.
Mr. Christensen,
Aye.
Ms. Tower,
Aye.
Mr. Bryant,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. And that passes. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 4, business items. Number 4.1, support personnel agreement. Mr. Anderson.
Well, I'm pleased to present the negotiated agreement with the Support Personnel Association for this year and next year. The agreement was actually reached in December, and there have been some minor modifications since that time. Members of the Support Personnel Association ratified the contract during the week of May 18th. Financial changes in the contract include 2% increases on each cell each year. The elimination of step 2 beginning in 2020-21 in order to increase the base rate of pay for new hires, and then also increasing the class 2 wages, or the wages for our special education assistants to match a secretarial band in class B. There are also some other modest financial changes and numerous language changes that are shown in the attached or in the red line version of the contract, which was included as an extra on the meeting site. So again, I know it took a long time and we had COVID that further slowed it, but I'm pleased that we reached this contract with a support personnel group.
Mr. Derricks has a comment or question?
He's abstaining.
We need to hear that, though.
Sorry, everybody. I'll try again. I have a conflict of interest with the support personnel, so I will refrain from discussion and voting on this matter.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion for approval of this support personnel master agreement for the 1920 and 2020-21 contract years as presented. I chaired that negotiation committee, and I want to thank my team that worked, again, well with the other support personnel group. Again, it was always a pleasure to work with these ladies, and I think I'll now buy Anne-Marie a cup of coffee. But we always have good discussion. I think this is a fair result for both sides, and I thank them all for their hard work, because this is a varied group, obviously. So just thank you to all of them. And again, I make the motion for approval.
Looking for a second?
Mike will second.
Thank you, Mike.
And
Any further discussion?
I would just point out that this is for the from 2019 to 2021 school year, so they're already halfway through this contract.
Right. Any other discussion? All right, so we will take a roll call vote to approve the support personnel master agreement for 2019-2020 and 2020-21 contract years as presented. Ms. Jones will ask you to vote first tonight on that.
Aye.
Mr. Derricks is abstaining.
Abstain.
Mr. Christensen,
Aye.
Ms. Tower,
Aye.
Mr. Bryant,
Aye.
Ms. Fair,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Minnesota State High School League resolution. Mr. Anderson, would you like to give us some background on that?
Yeah, each year the school district or the school board needs to approve a resolution for membership in the Minnesota State High School League. You see the membership that's attached.
Any discussion?
Jim will make a motion to approve.
Any second? Who was it? Someone give me a second.
Holly.
Thank you, Holly. Any further discussion on this? Okay. We'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Derricks, we'll start with you.
Aye.
Mr. Christensen,
Aye.
Ms. Tower,
Aye.
Mr. Bryant,
Aye.
Ms. Fair,
Aye.
Ms. Jones,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. And that motion passes for the Minnesota State High School League. Next, we will discuss the summer facility and field use presented by Dawn Wettern, who is the Director of Community Education and Recreation.
Thank you very much, Pam. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to everybody this evening. I just want to give a little bit of background information, then I'll turn it over to Josh Teakinson, who is the Community Recreation Coordinator. Just a little background. The school district has a joint powers agreement with the city and the school district, and it's run under community education. And that is where we have community recreation. Last week, we had presented to the city council, and we coordinate facilities together. So the school district and the city facilities are jointly coordinated for use. And the city council approved those fields to be used by outside renters. And what they would need to do is present a plan of how they are going to adhere to the Department of Health guidelines in social distancing and safe practices to work with individuals that use those fields. So what we're here today to talk to you about is twofold. The outside fields is one issue that we need to look at. And that again is coordinated with the city. We use the school district fields and AP Anderson, and then we coordinate those use. And then the school district inside facilities, gymnasiums, the arena, any of those facilities that we would want to leave open up. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Josh, and then we can have some discussion on how we're going to move forward. And this is an agreement that anybody who would use the facilities would need to submit.
All right, thanks, Dawn. Evening, everyone. Thanks for the time today. We created an association or renters agreement form that was created through a recommendation through the state of Minnesota with all the different park and rec groups. And essentially what it is to lay out what the plan is for each one of these organizations are, how they're going to make sure they adhere to the guidelines that are in place. So how are you going to social distance? How are you going to sanitize? And essentially just makes them be sure that they create this plan, they communicate what their plan is, and then they're held accountable for that plan. And I think that's the most important thing is that if at any time these groups, outside groups, don't adhere to the guidelines that are in place, we can remove that rental. That would be the step that we'd have to take if we felt the safety of those kids, the community, or the coaches are put in out of safety's way. So essentially, we've got that ability to kind of see what they're looking to do, and we're not going to approve it. The goal is to not approve it unless they have a good plan in action, and that we feel good about it, that we feel like we can trust that they've got the right intentions with the renter that we're working with. So it's been agreed upon, like Don said, with the city council. So right now the city fields are open, athletic field and AP Anderson. We're looking to get the school fields open as well for the softball and baseball programs for the outdoor facilities. And then the indoor facilities, we're looking at running high school-based programs with the high school coaches. And so Don, Paul Hardman, myself, and the other coaches have been in a lot of discussions on how we can make this happen. And the goal after tonight is to have those facilities open up so we can run high school-based programs during the summer season.
Arlen has a question.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a question or more like a comment. I am totally in favor of opening up the outdoor facilities through our joint powers agreement. I don't have any issue with that. However, I am of the opinion at this time it's premature to open up the interior of our school facilities. We won't even let our we're under stuff from the governor yet that we can't use it for school use. I personally believe that we are way ahead of discussing opening up practice and everything else for school sports. I personally believe that we should at least have our facilities totally closed until at least July 1st and possibly August 1st. It's just way too early, and I know I say that, and it's probably going to bother some people, but liability issues and everything else that enter into stuff inside our building bother me at this time. And we're just starting to open some things up, and I'd like to see us wait things out a couple of weeks, just see where they're headed before we go any further on any indoor use or school sanctioned events. I'm not in favor of school sanctioned events at this time.
Just to clarify, Arlen, the governor has opened up indoor facilities for organized youth programs, as long as they adhere to the 10 and under numbers. So it would be a coach and 9 students or 9 individuals. So he has opened that up only for organized youth groups, which would be your associations.
Or
Well, I'll stand by my opinion. Thank you.
That's fine. I just wanted to clarify that.
Holly?
Thanks, Josh. Thanks. So as people run into Walmart and they're real close to each other, and they run into Menards and they're real close to each other, and then we have guidelines where you can't go into restaurants. When you bring in a group of students into the high school gymnasium, and the person who's in charge of the group of students is an employee for Red Wing Public Schools, it's my understanding, and maybe Jackie, you could clarify a little bit, the law on workman's comp. If somebody were to get sick with COVID and they were a district employee, what that entails. I know it just was passed.
Yeah, if one of the changes from the legislative session and the governor's orders was that if an essential employee became sick with COVID-19 in their work setting, or they thought it was in their work setting, and school district employees are essential employees according to this, that it is the burden of proof of the employer to prove that they didn't get it in their work setting. And that if we can't prove that they didn't get it at work, it would go through our work comp as a work comp claim.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that for everybody as we move forward and what the thoughts are. I would hope nobody would get sick, God forbid, but if little people get sick, where's the liability there?
Unknown at this point, but it could fall back to the school district if we didn't take what our insurance company, or if it got to a lawsuit, would be reasonable procedures to prevent it.
Right, because we have them sign an agreement that when you use the facility, you'll wipe this down, you need to do this. Are we having anybody manage that procedure if people are wiping down or not wiping down?
What we do with that is, yeah, all great questions. One clarification I want to make too is they're not staff of the school district. They're independent contractors during the summer season. So that's the uniqueness of it. They're essentially working for community rec at that time. So liability and all that stuff, that's beyond my reach. But that's one clarification though for the summertime staff.
Even school coaches?
Yep. So my understanding is they're employed through me. So they're not paid through the school. They're basically, we work as an independent contractor together. I'm hiring out their services because they're out of season essentially is the key piece.
And another clarification is they also mainly volunteer their time, and any revenue that's collected would go back to their individual sport. The other clarification is when an association uses our facility, they submit a certificate of liability insurance for $1 million. So they do submit that, and that is something we require anybody who rents our facilities that has over a certain number of individuals that participate. But again, we always go on the side of caution. Our utmost responsibility is to make sure everybody is safe and that we adhere to the guidelines of the Department of Health.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Heidi, you had a comment or concern, question?
All of Holly's questions were my questions, so thank you. No extra.
Okay, Mr. Bryant.
There we go. There we go, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Here you are.
I can't remember if I'm turned off or not. So thanks, Josh and Don, for bringing this up. This is something that's going to go on for some time if we want it to. I think the idea that Josh and others have sat down, and Dawn and others, Mr. Hartman, and I've sat down and thoroughly discussed, looked at angles, figured out a way. This form is quite lengthy if you look at it. One thing interesting on there, I'll go back to my topic here, but you can't even spit sunflower seeds on the outfield grass anymore. I mean, what we're talking baseball and softball. But anyway, Holly brought up, other places that people still go to. The stores that are open yet, and people choose then to either have a mask or not. But let's be honest, all of us understand what social distancing are after 2.5 months of hearing about it and practicing it. I think this is a step in the right direction as we're going forward, opening things up. And it really boils down to the same things we did as kids, what we're doing now as adults, and as we get older. Wash your hands, cover your mouth. If you're not feeling well, stay home, all that thing, and and don't hang on anybody like we used to be able to do in the social distancing. So I'm in favor of it. I think it's we have to go forward. We can't just keep waiting and holding back. I know Kevin mentioned the gymnasium floor is going to be done in the last half of June, so that's going to cut into some time period there. So you probably look in July and sometime in August there to go forward. One question for Josh, if I may, Madam Chair. We heard a letter to us, and we received emails on the trap shoot team. You didn't address that. They practice or they shoot at a non-school facility. I don't think anything of what you've done here is brought that up or hindered that. So I think if it's the agreement, if it's a school function thing, they still have to function just like any other school function going on. And I would be in favor of allowing them to do it because she spelled it out pretty well, 9 feet apart, no other teams there. They don't travel together. They post a score. So I think it's a nice fit. We need to go forward and get something going on this so we can start opening up and get people active again on the outside. People are ready. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Mr. Tegeson, can you just quickly address the trap shoot? I'm assuming that the team, that's the high school based program with coaches?
It's a club.
Yep, the trap is a club team. So just kind of a little background. We've got Ultimate Frisbee, Trap, and Nordic Ski are all 3 teams that are run through Community Ed and Rec. So they're not high school affiliated. They're run through us. And so with that, Trap had submitted this form that I've shown you guys today, the agreement form. They submitted a form that was approved, and it was, if there's a place I can do social distancing, Trap can do that. And so they've been given the go-ahead to move forward with their summer season due to the fact that it was a community ed-based program, which we've been given the go-ahead to run those programs currently.
So in our recommendation, it says we're authorizing Community Ed and Rec to allow use of school district fields and facilities. But does that cover the trap because they don't use a district field or our facility?
Correct. Yeah, they go to Hampton as one of their main areas. They've got a couple other places. Yeah, they're not on school grounds at all.
So I want to make sure, though, that the essence of our motion covers them.
It is a program run through our department. So it's a club that would be, they had to submit just to make sure that they followed the same Department of Health guidelines, but it is a program of ours. So they would be covered under that.
Okay. Ms. Fair, question?
Thank you very much. Josh and Don, really appreciate all the work. I'm also really supportive of this. The Minnesota State High School League has given approval for go-ahead for coaches to have athlete conduct within the guidelines starting June 15th. So we're getting guidance from other organizations. Again, the city has already approved the outside fields and such, so I would hate to take away from, the movement that way. And you know what? We need revenue. We need to find ways that are safe and ways to increase the assets that we have and use the things that we have to help right now. So I just wanted to add that in. And of course, I just want to make sure we need to follow the law. And it sounds like in all these plans and guidelines, we are. Our leadership with all this has caution and appropriate safety guidelines in place here. And so I just really urge all of us to support this because I know kids need to get back to a sense of normalcy, and I think our staff does. And, I just think we have great guidelines here.
Thank you, Janie. And then we had Holly.
Yeah, I just wanted to quick ask, does anybody know when the YMCA is going to be opening up?
I can maybe speak on that if you want me to, Pam.
Yes, please.
I am the chair, so of the board, so I do have some inside. We don't know, I'll be honest. We did think that it was going to open up earlier. So I know big health facilities in general have been closed. So, I think the main thing, the difference is that youth sports and, the youth camps inside are still happening. So we have been given approval to have like day camps, with young kids, with social distancing and the right numbers are approved at this point. And Don, I know you're in those groups and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be my first, response to that one. So
I just would like to also add that they do rent our fields. So they are currently on the schedule waiting for the outcome of tonight's meeting. So they will be using Twin Bluff fields, just to clarify that. They are renters that use our facilities.
Thank you for clarifying that. Anything else, Holly, there?
No, I think that was just kind of like what is out there for people. What is out there for people to kind of climb into, and it sounds like we're slowly moving in that direction, but with a lot of caution. And I'm still extremely cautious about this. So that's all. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Christensen.
Yes. The groups that are using the spaces are going to be the ones responsible for cleaning it up or for doing the preventative care. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. It'd be up to the coaches if they're running their youth programs, the summer programs that we're hoping to do. They'd be responsible for making sure everything's followed to a T on that agreement form.
And how do we check that? How do we make sure that that is getting done?
It's just like the governor asked people to submit plans for restaurants, but he's not going to go around and check it. We have to have some assurances that individuals, once they submit that and they sign their name, they're renters, that if we would get any complaints, and periodically I would assume that we'll go check just to make sure, but it will be hard to monitor everything. So we're going to have to trust the people who have submitted and signed the agreements. Josh, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, the one thing I'd add if we're just talking about, so there's outside renters and then there's our programs that are run throughout the schools. Let's remember, if we were given the okay to run our high school programs in the summer, we're going to be talking about the coaches that are employed by the school district. So in that sense, they're not random people from outside the community that are coming in to run programs. So they would be our coaches who, if anybody's going to be invested in the safety of the kids, you'd hope it'd be them. And so that's definitely a little more reassuring to have that situation in place.
Yeah. And who's supplying the disinfectant, et cetera? Is that ours, or is that the clubs, the groups using it?
It'd be for the high school programs, it'd be community rec. If it's an outside renter, they'd be responsible for supplying all of their hand sanitizer and such.
That is part of the agreement, and people who are made aware that sometimes it's difficult to get those things. So they need to plan time to order and secure those items because they're hard to come by.
Yeah. And they are all required to have, the outside groups are required to have $1 million indemnity bonds. But what about the district's potential liability in the situation? I know Jackie was talking about it falling back on a workers' comp.
Well, one of the things to clarify is that community recreation through the joint powers agreement is a carrier of their own insurance. So they have a separate insurance from the school district. And that is what covers the programs operated under that umbrella, like Park Naturalists, Live Healthy Red Wing, some of our arrangements that we have. We also run the city pool, we run the outdoor rinks, but those are facilities that are covered by the district, but any program, the city, but any programming that would be operated would be covered by community recreation, which holds its own insurance.
Okay, and is that insurance per incident or cumulative for the year?
I'm not sure. I don't know. Could tell you that.
To be honest, we haven't had to use it besides some minor injuries in the 30 some years that it's been in existence, or 20 years it's been in existence.
When I did
we haven't had in 30 years.
I spoke with Musty
ahead,
Barnhart this afternoon. I'm sorry, with our rep from Musty Barnhart, just to get some background on this. And what I was told and what they've been basically told with all their clients is, as long as you're adhering to the guidelines, run the program. They're set up. They're open up by the governor. So as long as we're following what those guidelines are, they're pushing all their clients essentially that, yes, run the programs. As long as you're not negligent, you should be able to run those programs.
Okay, yeah. It's yeah, it's a different place and time. So I'm generally in favor of opening these places up, but I am concerned about the potential liability for the district. You know, everybody's got their indemnity bonds, but lawsuits come no matter what somebody has been doing. And a lot of times they get settled for pennies on the initial claim, but the pennies turn into thousands of dollars. So, yeah, anyway, I'll let someone else add something. Arlen had something to say?
Go ahead, Arlen.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, has the city of Red Wing opened up any of their buildings to the public? For one question. The other part is we aren't letting people inside in restaurants. We're letting them be on patios at restaurants, but not indoors. So I want to open things up, but I want to open up safely. And I still feel this is premature with everything. We have allowed people to go into churches, I guess, because, well, I can speculate reasons why, but the bottom line is the governor has not really signaled that he wants people indoors very much in groups. And I still have to respect that at this time. I just need more time for this to work through. In a couple of weeks, I'd feel a lot more comfortable voting yes on it, but I will be voting against it tonight.
Could I speak real quick too? Just, I want to add just something on there too, is that we're right now the tentative plan, because this is definitely, it's changing all the time, is to have June 15th, the first day that you can have contact with the athletes. The initial conversation was from June 15th to the end of June, so 2 weeks, doing everything outdoors and be more of the strength and conditioning program, where it gets the kids together. They're in their pods of 10, no more than 10, but it gets them getting in shape, because that's the biggest concern the coaches have right now, is they've not been doing anything the last 3 months. So that would give us additional 2 more weeks. So the end of June would be the earliest that we're even proposing to get into the building. So we'd be looking at being outdoors those first 2 weeks. And essentially the first part of July, we'd look to get the basketball teams indoors, volleyball teams indoors, to work on their sport specific skills, as well as that strength and conditioning program.
But one thing you would be approving, the associations would be able to use, if they submitted a plan, they would be able to use the facilities if you approve them sooner than that.
Holly, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, so at any moment, the numbers could spike and the governor could shut it all down anyway. Right? That's the flexibility that we need to kind of keep. So Josh, you said they can't get in the buildings until the beginning of July, but Dawn, you just said they can get in the buildings before July?
You have to remember there's 2 entities here. There's the renters and then there's our programs. Now, again, just to add additional information, Community Recreation has canceled our programming for youth this summer. We are going to go ahead with our 8th grade through 12th grade camps or with the coaches, just because of the level of, it's difficult. It's difficult for little ones, and only because we have the history of doing Kids Junction since the 2nd week of March. So we have opted not to have any youth programming this summer, but we are going to go ahead with our high school camps. So
to your question, Holly, is so June 15th is the first time that high school coaches can work with their kids, with their athletes. So we for surely won't be looking at any type of contact until June 15th. And at that point, with our high school programs, we'd be looking at doing those 2 weeks then of all outdoor strength and conditioning. And then come the first part of July, then we'd also add in, all right, now we're going to do volleyball specific programming, we're going to do soccer specific programming. that's where we're hopeful that's a month later that we'll feel better about where things are at. But we also know that it could stop. Like you said, tomorrow we could find out that everything's spiking and we cut that program right there. And the coaches are on board with that. They understand if we're able to do this, they know they've got to be flexible. And so the big thing with this vote here, hopefully opening up to our high school programs at the very least, gets them to start creating these programs with the goal of trying to start on that June 15th. Now, if you guys don't feel comfortable with that, what is our other option? We just are hopeful we can get something in stone so that we know, all right, coaches, start planning for this, because it's not something we can do overnight. And they're just all antsy. They want to get out there with their kids and they want to get out doing programming, obviously, but they want to do it safely.
If we okayed the outside for sure, that would suffice some of their antsiness? Is that what you're saying, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, that's better than nothing, for sure. But then if they're not allowed to be indoors and you've got some programs like baseball and softball and football that are going to really thrive compared to the indoor sports such as swimming, basketball, and volleyball.
Swimming on this?
What's that?
Is swimming part of this? The swimming club? Or the swim
The swim
team?
club, not the swim club, but the high school swim team would like to do some sort of programming with their youth, with their high schoolers.
Okay.
Unless something has changed, the swim club and the soccer club will not be doing any activities this summer. They've opted and they've received direction from the state, so they won't be. Josh, if there's an update with that, but those two entities for the youth will not be active this summer. They're playing on the side of caution.
And I just recently, there's been more discussions with the swim club. They canceled their regular season, but they're looking at trying to do some sort of camps or clinics in a smaller format. So they'd like to utilize the pool and they'd be a renter. So they're not a part of our program. They'd be an outside rental group. The swim team though, which is our varsity, they'd be a part of our program in our school district.
But it's more than 10 kids for the high school kids.
They would split them up. So all these programs, there's strict protocols as to the max is 10 in a pod. So like a baseball field, you can have 3 pods of 10. Football field, you can have 4 pods of 10. Swimming has very specific rules as to how do they do their distancing as well too. So
they would maybe possibly
rotating them around. Is that what you said?
Yeah, like the time we go into the gym, play 5-on-5, do whatever. They would go out, then the next group maybe come in.
No, we don't want to intermingle. So it's very specific in the sense, if we're doing basketball, we got 3 courts indoors. And so they would have 3 sets of, each court can have up to 10 people total. That's including the coach. So we could have 27 kids and 3 coaches at a time. Let me just make sure I've got that number right. So it's very specific in the sense of we know exactly how many people can be in a setting, and the coaches would create their program based around that. Now, what this would mean, it'd be smaller groups, but possibly more hours. So instead of having 30 kids at one time, they might only be able to have 10 kids at one time, so they have to maybe do 3-hour slots. And so the key is not intermingling, not having these kids cross paths at all. We would do sign-ins, so we know exactly who's there each and every day. And it'd be one of those that they wouldn't be crossing paths with each other. We're also going to try to set up, if this is approved, not to have basketball and then volleyball right after that, and then softball right after that, because we don't want those kids bouncing from program to program and just having more contact with each other. So it's trying to create a way that they're not intermingling at all and they're staying in their pods as often as possible when they're in our programs.
I know 3 years ago, Theodore would look at me across the table and go, "What are you even thinking, Mom? We need to get out there. The kids," I get it. Okay. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. Dawn, thank
you. Janie?
I guess I just want to reiterate that this is a voluntary thing. I mean, people do not have to come if they're not comfortable. I assume, whenever you sign up for kids for activities these days, there's an elaborate waiver system. And so I just kind of wanted to make sure people are aware of that. And, I don't mean to get too dramatic, but I'm very concerned about the mental health of our kids. And, lots of programs are being cut across the state because of kind of overnight, considerations and stuff. So I think whatever we can do within the guidelines that are set in place by the governor right now, we have to do our best to do, because kids need safe, activities to be involved in, to take their time up so that they can properly, use their time in a really good way rather than a maybe not so good way. So again, I just want to make sure people are aware of kind of those considerations too. Thank you.
And I do know that Paul and I and Josh have talked a lot about that. This is absolutely a decision that families need to make for their family, for their children, and that this is an opportunity, but it's not ever going to be looked at as something negative if they choose not to participate.
Thank you, Janie and Dawn. You took the words right out of my mouth. That was what I was going to say too, that you know, this would be completely voluntary. Their summer participation has no bearing on whether a student would make it on a team or not. The other thing is, you know, we are in kind of unexplored territory here. We've never had to have this conversation or have, you know, try and figure all this out. And kudos to you, both Josh and Dawn. And I know Paul has been a part of this discussion as well as others. I really feel like you've thought thoroughly through all of the scenarios and have put everything in place so that we are doing everything we can to make this a safe opportunity for kids to start back up moving and grooving. And we need to start somewhere, right? You know, this could go on for a long time. We don't know. There's so many unknowns out there, but we do have to make a move forward at some point. We have to start somewhere. And I feel like you've given great pause and thought into this process on what we would need from both renters and our programs. So I very much think that we need to, and I agree with you, Janie, too, that, you know, I do think that there's a mental health piece. We are all people made to be connected to other people. No one really is used to living in a bubble. And if we can start opening up our bubble even just a little bit as safely as we possibly can, we certainly, I think we need to move forward and do that. So that's my thoughts right now. And Holly, no, Jim's next, sorry.
Madam Chair, if I could speak after Holly, that'd be great.
Okay.
I'll let her go in front of me.
Okay.
No, really quick, this is not the arenas, right? Or is this hockey?
The arena is, because it's youth-based, the way that we fund the arena during the summer for 3 weeks is through the program called South Shore, and that's youth-based. And so we, across the line, canceled all youth-based programs that were below 9th grade. So the ice will not be in the arena. There's no plan to have it in the arena because there's no way to pay for that ice. But the arena would be utilized by the boys and girls hockey teams to do their dry land and do their programming, is what the goal would be. That'd be their kind of home base for their inside programming.
Perfect. I'd be so mad if I forgot that question. Thank you, John.
All right, Mr. Bryant.
Well, we don't want Holly to get mad, so that's for sure. I think I agree with what you said earlier, Madam Chair, about I think the youth are ready. Janie said that too. I mean, I talked to a number of parents, and their children really miss that last few months of their friends and getting together and doing different things. So I'll make a motion to approve the agreement as presented by Josh this evening to go forward. And it might all change. Who knows, in the next week or two that something comes out, and it's always subject to whatever any new requirements that are placed on us.
Have to be prepared.
Totally agree. Janie, I'll second.
All right, so the motion on the table reads, I move to authorize the Community Education and Recreation Department to allow use of school district fields and facilities within the guidelines outlined by the Governor of Minnesota. Made by Jim, seconded by Janie. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, it is time to start with Mr. Christensen.
I will vote aye. I wanted to add in, I hope we have somebody coming around for the first few sessions of this to make sure that the precautions that we're asking to be put in are put in place. Somebody independent from the groups that are using them. I assume that would cost us some money potentially, but I think it's a good good thing to check and make sure that what we're requiring is getting done. I will vote aye because at some point, like you said, we open up and it's a grand experiment. So hopefully it's not opening up because of political pressures, but because we do feel that it's the safest thing to do for what we know about this disease. That's an aye.
Okay. Ms. Tower?
Aye.
Mr. Bryant?
Aye, and I agree with Mike on having somebody check it.
Ms. Fair?
Aye.
Ms. Jones? Ms. Jones?
There I am. But I echo Mr. Christensen's approach to opening up and compliance checks.
Mr. Derricks?
No.
And chair votes aye. Passes 6-1. We will look forward to a update as you can provide them, Dawn and Josh, on how things are going and how the facilities and fields are being utilized. So thank you again for being here with us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is 4.4 meeting location. Mr. Anderson, do you want to give some background on that?
Yes, I apologize. I was kicked out of the meeting earlier, so if it happens again, feel free to go ahead without me. As we all know, on March 30th, we took a motion to conduct our meetings by telephone or other electronic means until further notice. That's the key phrase, until further notice. The board packet includes what that motion included. Part of it had to do with public comment, which will also be discussed here. And due to changing circumstances and orders, it would just be nice, for me to have clarification or for us to have clarification as far as when should we meet again in person. And, we don't need to rush it. I'm certainly not suggesting necessarily that we start meeting right away in person, but I'd kind of like to know who's going to determine until further notice and when will that happen. And so the one possibility is to, allow Pam Rowe as the chair to determine how meetings will be conducted, as long as they're in accordance with state law and orders issued by the governor of Minnesota. Or we could wait until the full board votes on starting to meet at the next meeting, or something like that. I'm just hoping to get some clarification so I know how to set things up.
How are people feeling on what they would like to do moving forward?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I didn't hit the chat room, but I'll speak.
Okay.
I think it's a good discussion to have. We have a meeting in 15th of June. Then the next one is like 5 weeks later. I think we leave it. I'm comfortable with you leaving it up to you with any further clarification, maybe a little bit more discussion as to what we're looking at for July and August at our next meeting. I think we all are anxious to get back in a meeting setting other than virtual. This has worked nice, but it does prolong. It does change the dynamics of what we're doing and how we're meeting and that. And I think we heard that loud and clear on the public comment part of it. So I'm fine with you leaving it up to you, and then just having an update at our next meeting as we go forward into July and August. And I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Who's next there? Is that Heidi or Mike or Jeannie? Jeannie, you're next.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I tend to be a little bit more comfortable these days with being out, but I know others are not. So I just want to make sure that everybody does feel comfortable. And so I guess I kind of echo what Jim said. I think Pam, as chair, that's part of your responsibility to make decisions, but I want to make sure that, other board members, if you need to be on video call, that, I understand, I'm sure we would all understand. But I do agree exactly what Jim said. I think, virtual has worked, but I don't think it's the optimal way to be able to have a meeting and have really fruitful discussions. So, or have the public talk to us. So, I'm ready to go, but I'd leave it in your hands, Pam. So thank you.
Heidi.
Slightly different take. I mean, as a board, we had to come to mutual agreement to enact our current status. So I would like us to take that approach with any changes moving ahead. I just think it's a better way to make that decision together. But I do expect that you and Karsten will be keeping updated about what are those options, what are the guidance pieces, and provide us with some background information. Now, I know Minnesota School Boards Association has put out some guidance. I think it came out on Saturday as far as in-person meetings. And I think until things settle down maybe a little bit more, where people are a little more comfortable, I'm not in favor of moving to the in-person meeting, because with 7 board members and a superintendent, you're already at a group of 8. We have an administrative assistant who records, that's 9. And then we have obviously a number of people interested in a number of topics for the public comment, and now you've got to manage that, because 9 is a phenomenal number where people wanted to do input. That doesn't even include student school board members, and I'm sorry that they have struggled to be part of this, because the intention of that program is to involve youth in decision-making and civil dialogue. So that's missing. And then we haven't even talked about when staff are presenting, and we have a number of staff who need to come before us and explain programs or explain decisions, or, I'd love to meet new hires in person, kind of, so I think in person is tough. I also, at this time, and then I think, that hybrid meeting might work for a while, but I'm not sure that changing things now to that sort of one person, you or the superintendent are at one location like we started out, and then others can be virtual. And it just seems like you're getting into I don't know what benefits you really get out of that by moving to that at this time either. So, and I agree with the others. There are some limitations on this way of meeting. I'm glad that we have technology, but it also bumps other people out that don't have technology or don't know how to use that or access. So I think it's an access thing to me too, but I would like the board to make this determination together. Thanks.
Thank you, Heidi. Mike? Oh, Mike, are you muted?
I laugh at everybody else who does that, so I suppose I did laugh at myself. But I agree with Heidi that it shouldn't be just your decision. I think that's putting too much weight on your shoulders. I think that you could bring it forward as when you think that it's a good time to be doing it, but the whole board should vote on it. And I wasn't even considering the limit of 10 people when I was originally thinking of that, but that is a pretty big deal. And kind of a cutoff point for this discussion. If we want to have people coming to the meetings, we can't have more than 10 people in the room. That eliminates that opportunity. So I would continue on with what we're doing right now until we have a little bit better idea of where the governor opens up to a larger scale attendance. I feel bad about sending our youth into rooms, but supposedly they're staying in just groups of 10 and maintaining their distance. But we would not be able to maintain a limit of 10 people attending our meeting.
Yeah. Holly?
Well, Heidi, I just want to say touche. You said everything I wanted to say, so thank you very much, Heidi. I agree with you, and I agree with Mike.
All right.
And Arlen?
Yeah, these meetings are difficult when we can't be in person, and but I honestly don't know how else we can do it at this time, and everything everybody said. I think we can meet and social distance fine if it's just us and our presenters. But we're a public body open to the public, and where's the public going to be? Even if they expanded it to 20, I don't think we could do it. And where would we meet? City Hall, as far as I know, is closed.
Off limits, yeah.
Off limits, as I said before. And we are looking at trying to do something on our own. We had the, what do you want to call it? The media room or whatever it is. That room is certainly going to be way too small if there's an audience. We possibly could go back to the media center and space out enough there. But I just don't see it working at this time under the restrictions that are there. And I think we can go meeting by meeting to make that decision right now. But if we would see a drastic change between the June 15th meeting, we will have a workshop on the 29th, I believe, yet. So it isn't a 5-week span. There's a workshop still.
Right.
And I think that's still scheduled for virtual. If we knew we wanted to do something at the next meeting after that, at that time, we could add that to the agenda item, possibly on the workshop, that we would have another meeting immediately before it or as part of it to vote to have the July, I don't even remember what the date is. This be the third Monday in July, not be virtual if we were ready to go that route at that time. But I think we just take it meeting by meeting, is my opinion. And then certainly Pam would suggest to us when it's time if nobody else does it.
Yeah,
I'd like to follow Pam's lead.
thank you. Heidi?
Are we having a separate discussion about the public comment procedure, or is this the same discussion item?
Well, it'll come after this one. So
Okay, so I'll hold
our
then.
virtual meetings. Kind of my feeling is that I think we need to continue staying virtual for a while. I agree, meeting by meeting. And, you know, we'll keep on scheduling them as virtual meetings. The one thing that I would like to entertain, and we don't need to decide this tonight, but we do have a board workshop coming up the end of June on the 29th. And it is a time for us to evaluate our own self board and our workings together. It's going to be facilitated by somebody from MSBA, and they have not been given the go-ahead to come out physically and be with us that day. But I'm still wondering if we wouldn't be better off having the 8 of us in a socially distanced appropriate room with her or him up on the screen, helping to facilitate our discussion. I think there's a lot of merit, especially when you're talking about evaluating, you know, our practices as a board in meeting face to face. Again, we don't need to decide that right now. We can put that on the agenda, Mr. Anderson, for the 15th and see, you know, how the next 2 weeks go and how you're feeling comfortable wise. I don't want to disclude anybody 100%. If you're not feeling comfortable, then we all go to a virtual, but I want us to all, for the 29th, I'm not talking school board meetings because I think that is a different entity, but I'm just talking our workshop. We haven't had 1 or 2 maybe people sit in on our workshops. They will still be recorded for anybody to view in the future. But I guess if one way that we could deal with that is if you wanted to attend that workshop on the 29th, people could let us know by the Friday before. And if there was a huge need or reason for people to want it, you know, if there was a large contingent, that's what I'm looking for. If there was a large number of people who wanted to join us, then we could change it at the last meeting. Mike, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking that for somebody to moderate a discussion, it might be difficult for them to do that if we are in a single group and she can't see our faces as we're talking, as I hide myself sometimes. But
yeah,
that it might be difficult for them to execute efficiently if
Yeah.
we're not, if she can't see who's talking and who's doing what. It may be able to be done, but I'm just bringing that up. They should be able to have each of us individually on in their visual.
That's a really good point, Mike. Thanks. So, we'll take it meeting by meeting, and, maybe by then she'll have gotten the green light to be able to come down. So we'll just take it meeting by meeting as we've discussed, and hopefully we'll be able to open up sooner rather than later. Thank you for that discussion. Anything else about teleconferencing our school board meetings?
Pam, excuse me, Pam, this is Heidi. I can't tell if anybody else is in line next ahead of me.
I'm sorry. Yep.
I didn't log in here, but so my understanding from MSBA's managerial operational approach is that they are working remotely until middle of July. I mean, they have made that determination that as the governor has kind of provided some guidance, if you can work from home, you should continue to do so.
Right.
And so that's kind of the approach they've taken. So I'm not sure that anything will change. I by no means am managing the staff there. That's their job. I just wanted to add that to the conversation that I've been told they will continue to work remotely until July 15th, middle of July.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind as things develop.
Okay. Thank you. If nothing further on our virtual meetings, I'd move us to a discussion about how we want to proceed with public comment. The feedback I've been given this morning, and you've heard, we had 9 people come forward with public comment, and I'm doing my best to read them verbatim. I'm not adding or subtracting anything from those, but obviously, we do want to hear from people in their own voice. I agree with you, Holly, that that's an important piece that's missing in all of this. And so we did okay our current procedure, and so we would need board action to change our procedure and then to move forward with publicizing that so everybody has the same information on how to proceed and submit public comment moving on in the future. So, Holly.
You're mute, Holly.
Oh, I was talking to myself. Don't laugh. I wanted to say I'd like to make a motion to just switch that little piece so that we can hear directly from people. I know when I talked to MSBA, they said they worry that somebody might not read what's actually on their letter, right? So you prove the letter and then something else could come up. And I said, that's not really any different though if somebody is standing in front of us and all of a sudden they start cursing us out. So, I mean, we have the ability to mute them real quick. So that was kind of one of the things that MSBA said. They said it's really a local decision on how you want to proceed with that. So I would just like to make the motion to allow people to have their authentic voice in public comment.
Lisa, are you still on the call? Yes, I'm sure you are. So I'm assuming that is a doable factor in if somebody has public comment, they should still reach out to me 2 hours prior, and I can and you to make sure they have the right call-in information.
Yes, I can give video or phone invitations to the individuals that wish to do public comment.
Okay, so am I hearing the motion, not just a phone, but would we like to allow them video access to the meeting to share their public comment during public comment time? Is that part of the motion?
Not necessarily, because sometimes it jams up the line. So I want to be real considerate of whatever that may be. So I'm very flexible on that.
Okay. Heidi.
First of all, procedurally, I hate to have a discussion in the middle of there's a motion but not a second. So I was hoping we'd have a little more discussion ahead of this. But I think that, you know, if we have a motion and a second, then we can move forward. So I would just like to make sure that everybody is clear on that. So, I guess, and I really do appreciate the point about the authentic voice. I do. And then I have another concern about meeting management. I'm a little concerned. My concern is if someone starts taking their 3 minutes, and I'm not even sure what you read tonight would have survived a 3-minute limit. Some of them seemed way longer. So anyway, but I'm concerned that somebody can kind of hijack the meeting in a virtual setting, and they can kind of do it in a physical setting too. But how do we manage that? How do we manage a meeting, you know, with a public speaker, you know, getting passionate and now they want to have discussion and that's really not allowed? How do we manage that virtually?
They have to read their letter and it has to be approved by Pam prior to entering in.
And
So
that's their limitation. Okay.
that's like, I think it's perfectly appropriate for Pam to have read it in advance and go, nope, not this. Yep, you can do this. You know, from that standpoint, I think that's perfectly appropriate.
Well, but what if they don't?
Point of order.
So now we're on a virtual setting. Who has the
We
authority
need
to
a,
turn them
Madam Chair,
off?
we need a second to have a discussion, so.
Well, we don't really have a full motion on the table yet, do we, Holly?
Yeah,
She made a motion.
I made a somewhat of a motion, but then you jumped in and said, do you want it to be that they can be videoed or do you want it on call in? And then I said, I'm flexible on that. So I can pull that motion off the table and we can continue to have a conversation.
Okay.
Thank you.
That'd be great for procedurally. Yeah.
Yes.
I think we still need to talk before we make a full motion, but I have something written down already. All right, thanks. Janie?
I think that, you know, I have no problem. Again, I think the voice is amazing, you know, and it's important to hear that. And, you know, Pam did a great job reading all those, but that's quite a hefty thing to have to do in the middle of a meeting. And you are running the meeting too. So I agree that something new kind of has to happen. I think the city kind of has been doing it the way that you're proposing, as far as, you know, having people check in 2 hours ahead of time or such. And, it seems to be working well. And again, whether it's video or phone, I guess I don't have any big things, but I think we probably, I guess my opinion would probably be on the phone, just because we've been saying, you know, how much of the bandwidth has been important at times. So I think I would err more toward that. And I just think we have to have it really laid out very clearly what the new plan is, just for everybody's sake, because it is, you know, a lot to have people calling in, and the time frames, and Pam having to figure out who's here and who's not. So I just think it needs to be a workable plan for her and those other people that might be running a meeting. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Arlen?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the things that I wonder is, I know you're the one they should email if they want to do public comment at the meeting and you read it. I'm wondering if it would make more sense to have them email Lisa with public comment, and then I guess possibly have her read the public comment rather than you. Just throwing some ideas out here. The other possibility would be maybe make it 4 hours before the meeting or something. Do we want to include it as a supplemental board packet item, what those public comments are? But then again, that could be snowball into something huge. I just want to point out that public comment is not required. It's something that's encouraged, and I don't want to ever come out that I don't want the public to comment. But our focus is to run a business meeting when we're at the meeting here. And we certainly want to have comments from the public, but we got to be careful not to have it overwhelm us. And it's difficult because of what we're in here now. Preferably, we'd have the person reading it to us in person where we can see them and get the full meaning of it. But we're in what I consider a temporary emergency mode to conduct our meetings right now. And unfortunately, we can't make things work the way it did before. That's just the reality of it. So we're doing the best we can with what we have. I think you've done a great job, Pam, reading the meetings, reading the public comment. But I'm not sure if you're the right contact, or if we should have a neutral party like Lisa being the go-between to take the public comment and then decide who's going to read it, which can be you. Thank you.
All good. Thank you, Peter. I think that kind of my preference is a little bit of a hybrid of what I've been hearing. I think that we need to have something submitted way before 4 p.m. Because usually I'm in a meeting at 3:45. And so that kind of gets tricky because 2 weeks ago I missed one because I was in the meeting. So I'd like to say by noon on the day of a meeting that it's submitted. I think it needs to come either to Karsten or myself so that we can kind of read through and make sure that if there are names or things that need to be crossed out or, you know, redacted, then we have some time to get back to that original person to make sure that they understand that they can't say that or do that. I really would like to hear people's voices. And so my personal preference would be to allow the phone calls and save the bandwidth, like you said, Holly. So that would be my procedure. My preferred procedure would be to submit a letter by noon on the day of a board meeting. And that then Lisa can make sure that they have the call-in, and then that person waits quietly until they are called upon, and then they get their 3 minutes. How does that feel? Yeah.
Is that
So Harry, how does that feel for a motion for you?
Yeah. And I'm willing to make that motion, Holly, if you're whatever.
I'll second it.
Oh. Okay, I will make the motion that public comment for Red Wing Public School Boards will be submitted before noon on the day of the school board meeting, either sent to Chair Rowe or Superintendent Anderson for checking that it meets our guidelines, and then allow the writer of the email to stick to the email topic and allow that to happen during a phone call during the virtual meetings.
So motion made by Heidi, and somebody I heard seconded, but I didn't hear who.
Holly did.
Holly, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, this time we start with Ms. Tower for roll call vote.
Aye.
Mr. Bryant?
Aye.
Ms. Fair? Aye. Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Derricks?
Aye.
Mr. Christensen?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you. Thank you for this discussion. I think it's really important. And again, you know, I appreciate the public's patience with us. You know, we're in uncharted territory and we're figuring out as we go. And so thank you for that feedback today. I really appreciated hearing that. And we do want to hear your voices. And I hope that you know loud and clear just from our vote that we just had that we all feel the same way. So thank you. Future topics and upcoming meetings. We have our next school board meeting on June 15th, which will be virtually held right here. And you have what's happening right before that on that day?
We have a legislative and policy committee meeting on June 15th at 4:45.
Okay, thank you. Legislative and policy, I thought so. And then we'll have the 6 p.m. school board meeting. Holly? Special Finance Committee on June 8th.
Yeah, I just remembered the reason, Karsten, that I asked you about the people that were on the interview committee, I'm just going back to this really quick, is because last year we had a meltdown over who was going to be on committees, who was going to supervise committees, how we were going to determine. So I just wanted to stay consistent with knowing like we're still moving in that direction. Was there a board person on the committee or on the interview panels?
For the Burnside principal, there was. For the director of teaching, there was not. The intent was to have Pam Rowe there, but we had a scheduling conflict, so I went ahead with the interviews. But I'll be meeting with Pam this week to discuss the interviews so that we're on the same page.
And then for the last two, did you?
No.
Okay. All right. Yep. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Harlan, did you have something?
Yeah, I asked at our last meeting, and I'm going to ask again. I think we need to have the board involved in a thorough discussion on what school is going to look like this fall sooner rather than later. I don't think we should be waiting till the middle of July on this. And I just, and I know it's hard, but because we don't know what things are, but I think we need to start laying this out with board involvement, unless we're just going to let the administration run our school and we're not going to be the part of it. So thank you.
Yeah, and the administrative staff does not want to make all these decisions independently. What we're thinking is that we could come up with multiple options as far as what might happen, and then when the governor gives us some guidance, then the school board will need to deliberate, make some decisions. We don't know if a hybrid option would be a possibility. We don't know if parents will have a choice, between distance learning and in school. There's so many things that we could be going around and around in circles. And that's why we're thinking that, we could come up with all the options and then present it to the board at the right time. And then we'll still have time for the board to make the decision. That's what I'm thinking anyway.
And if needed, we can always call a meeting prior to the end of July, to have that talked about earlier than that, Arlen. Yeah, that's a good point.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, could I just take maybe 10 seconds just maybe to add on to that? With the numbers that Mike presented from the Finance Committee, I guess that would extend are we going to be having to cut kindergarten sections at all or anything, or what kind of planning that way are we going to have to do? Because that's where we might possibly have to, have more of that discussion June 15th, I guess. And, we're not meeting as a personnel committee either, so scheduled right now. So I guess I just kind of want to emphasize a little bit of what Arlen's saying. So.
And Arlen and Karsten and I hopefully will be meeting tomorrow, and maybe the three of us can come up with a good plan and for topics moving forward, and maybe some dates, because we might have to add a couple of meetings here or there in the next month or so, so that we can cover all this and be ready to go come the end of August or September. So we'll take a good look and see where things are at and what we might need to add moving forward.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Jackie, what time is that special finance meeting on June 8th? Or anyone?
4:45.
4:45. All right. Thank you. Anything else that people want to highlight on upcoming meetings or future topics? Okay. So then the last item is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
moved.
It's a tie.
Heck one.
Moved by Janie, seconded by Jim.
Yep. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Bryant, you can start us off with our roll call vote.
Absolutely yes.
Yes, Jeannie.
Yes.
Heidi.
Yes.
Arlen.
Yes.
Mike.
Aye.
Yeah, Holly.
No, I'm just kidding. Yay.
And chair votes aye. Great, thank you. I will go ahead and close this meeting. 8:29.
Aye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Great meeting. We covered a lot of ground.
We sure did. Thanks.
Y'all later.
Yep. Will we see you in the morning, Karsten? Whoop.